You see, we live amongst a group of people who are interested in turning the clock of this country back 500 years. What they want is feudalism. They want to turn the clock back to where it was before the Enlightenment. They really do want a society where they're in charge and everyone else worships them. They really do want to have people kneel down to them, curtsy and bow. They get off on that kind of stuff. And they figure that they are entitled to that because they're rich. Now, they got rich because they gamed the system in their favor. But they don't recognize that they did that. They think they made their money legitimately by being smarter than others. True enough that many of them did do some wonderful things. They didn't all cheat to earn their money, but that doesn't entitle them to make billions of dollars while the rest of us scramble for dog scraps. Unfortunately, the human mind isn't always honest with itself. And so they, the ruling class, indeed feel that they are better than us because they have more money. And so they look at us as their inferiors. They view us as peasants. And so they desire to cement that in place. They feel the need to institutionalize their supposed superiority. And don't you think for a second that that's not what they want. That is what they want. And that is why the policy of the United States is what it is. That's why we can never solve the drug problem. That's why we can never solve the education problem. Because they stand in the way. They don't want people becoming less addicted. They want people becoming more addicted. And the reason they want people to become more addicted is because emaciated people are less likely to rebel against their rule. Furthermore, weakened, emaciated people are more likely to be dependent upon them for Social Security and other government handouts that their government controls. That's why they don't want to solve the obesity problem either, nor do they want to fix our healthcare system. They stand in the way of every opportunity we have to fix things. If there are measures done, they're usually watered down, weakened measures which aren't effective. Or if they are effective by chance, they are scuttled after their next president gets into power. These rulers, these elites, are the ones behind this. I can't tell you precisely who these people are, just as I can't point to God and say, aha, there is God in physical form. Yet I know God exists. Similarly, I know that evil exists, and I can see the evidence of that evil. I can tell you the general characteristics of these people. I can tell you that they love their Ivy League universities. They love Harvard. They love Yale. They contribute a lot of money to these institutions. Your money. For the most part, they come from old money, although they accept new members. Traditionally, they resided in the northeast section of the United States, although they don't necessarily reside there now. They have their people everywhere now. Consequently, there's a lot of them. There's not just 5 or 10 guys. There's millions of these people, which sounds like too many, but you have to remember we have 325 million people in the US and 8 billion in the world. They admire the British ruling class. They look at them as a model. They love Oxford. They love Eton. They love the London School of Economics. They love their private schools. They love separating themselves off from the rest of us. And they don't give a damn what happens to us, except that they need to keep us weak. They need to keep us off balance. That's why they fight all these wars. That's why they don't do anything about drugs. That's why they don't do anything about education. They need to keep us weak and stupid so that they can stay more strong. And that's the way it is. They want drugs to flow into the nation. Their goal is to keep a vast majority of Americans poor, stupid, drugged out, and subservient to them. They certainly don't want people strong enough to rebel. Now, we've had a war on drugs ever since Richard Nixon. It's been an unsuccessful war. Why can't our leaders figure out how to stop the flow? It's because they don't want to stop the flow. If you read Seth Harp's book, The Fort Bragg Cartel, he talks about how the Taliban shut the drug trade down immediately when they took control of Afghanistan. When we took over Afghanistan, the drug trade went through the roof. Then, when the Taliban came back in power and took over the country again, the drug trade stopped. So that invites the question, how come the Taliban can shut down the flow of drugs and we can't? It's because we don't want to, or rather, our leaders don't want to. Before becoming a major drug dealer in North Carolina, Freddie Huff, who was once a law enforcement officer in North Carolina, did a stint in El Paso. While there, an older worker who was dying of cancer divulged to Freddie his parting message of wisdom. He told Freddie that our leaders wanted the flow of drugs in America. Of course, our leaders will deny that. But so many people who observed the war on drugs over the decades know that this is true. All these people cannot be wrong, and they are not wrong. The phony war on drugs is just another part of the ruling class's program to destroy the American middle class. What our ruling class desires is feudalism. They prefer a nation of serfs who obediently follow what they, the ruling class, dictates. To that end, the ruling class and the media they control are committing a massive fraud upon the people. Our ruling class lies with impunity. They lie about everything. Yet every time the ruling class appears as if they're going to get caught, the media they control spins the story in a different direction in order for them to escape scrutiny. You have to give them credit for that. They are master escape artists who put Houdini to shame. Out.